The Australian Grand Prix was back in March, over 1 month ago from today, and Formula 1 is still not back. And go 1 month into the future, 2 months into the future, it's still not going to be back. Of course, we all know why we're here. We all know what's going on in the world right now. But the question is, when is Formula 1 going to get back to racing? But the thing we're going to talk about today in today's episode is not just the racing, but the racing, how it should be. How it's been since the first race back in Silverstone 1950. The fans. How much difference do the fans make to the race? And of course, we want to watch the race like we have done many times. Like me and Jordan have been to Silverstone many times. Like we've been to Monza back in 2017. We watched the race. We watched the amazing spectacle unfold. And like the guy, the special guest in our video today has done many, many times. So, welcome to the F1 Debate Show, guys. But first off, let's introduce our guest for today. We met this guy at Silverstone 2019, linked kind of to this episode, which of course is about going to races. It's Aldas. Aldas, how are you doing today? And how are you filling your time in? Obviously, in this UK lockdown we find ourselves in at the moment.
Yeah, well, hi guys. It's really great to be finally back on the channel. This is, I think, only my second appearance on the F1 Debate Show. So yeah, well, as far as what I've been doing at my time, staying indoors, that was a bit of a shocker maybe. But really, it's just been, to be honest, it's been really busy. Like I've been filling my time with YouTube and also university work, because although obviously, we can't go into uni, I still have a lot of stuff to do because I'm in my final year. But yeah, other than that, yeah, it's been a really boring period, and I can't believe how Formula 1 was all the way back in the 1st of December 2019. Like, it seems crazy, but yeah, I'm looking forward to today's episode, and it's a very interesting topic, actually.
Really excited to talk about this. Yeah, 102 days, that was what it was from Abu Dhabi, and I said this in one of our episodes a few days ago, I think it was. 204 days, of course, is our second winter break, and we're actually getting close to, matching our second break. So, like, if you took, the first winter break, doubled it, and we are here at the moment. It's a painful situation, having no Formula 1 at the moment. Mm-hmm. But we're not completely, out. It's not like we're out of options. One of the options is, and of course, not just Formula 1, other options is running events behind closed doors. There has been a few. Different league, kind of around the world that have done this, and there has been talk about this. So, for example, the Premier League, the FA Cup, and other sports as well. It's a really difficult thing to talk about because there's going to be no fans, there's no publicity, there's no money, there's no a lot of things, and that's obviously what we're going to be talking about today. So, at the moment, as time of recording, and it's worrying to say. Because, of course, Paul Ricard is the next race. Canada got cancelled about 2 weeks ago now. Paul Ricard, which, of course, is the next race after Canada, is almost going to be cancelled. So I'm going to say, as time of recording, Paul Ricard is on. Really don't know if that's going to stand. But we're going to kind of take it as talking vaguely about the next few races. Really from Paul Ricard to the summer break. What is the racing going to be like with no fans? So, Aldas, we all three of us have been to Silverstone. The massive, spectacle at Silverstone it is actually last year was 351,000 people attended that event. It's massive. It's actually up there alongside Wimbledon as the biggest British multi-stage event of the entire year. When you went in 2019, the spectacle was incredible. We already know that, but in your own words, how much do you think that it helped Formula 1 to be there? How much did you enjoy that weekend? And I mean, there's races all the time around Silverstone, but how much does the fans being at Silverstone affect the race? Just kind of the dynamism, the atmosphere there. How much is the atmosphere at Silverstone kind of electrifying and helping Formula 1 at the British Grand Prix?
Well, look, I mean, Silverstone is absolutely magic. And for all your international viewers, you hear all the time, you hear Monza, fantastic fans. You hear Silverstone, amazing fans, amazing atmosphere. And there's a very good reason for it. It's because when I went there, it was obviously my first ever Grand Prix I've ever even been to. And just ignore the racing and ignore Formula 1. As an event, as a festival, the fans, the people, it was so great to see people that like Formula 1, because I think quite a few people, I don't actually know that many people in real life that like Formula 1. So it's just so great to be around motorsport fans and Formula 1 fans, and then of course meeting you guys as well. And that's the thing, again, take the racing away, just the spectacle, just the atmosphere there was absolutely magic, and obviously meeting you guys as well was amazing, and it would never have happened if there was no fans there. But yeah, I mean, Silverstone was so special, and it's actually a shame that we didn't get to spend a little bit more time in 2019, but hopefully I'll see you guys again in the future.
Yeah, I really wish so. Thanks, Aldas. Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely incredible. Jordan, I mean, from your view, of course, this year is our 10th, is our like 1 decade since, we first went there. And of course, where we kind of, became friends as well, back in 2010. How was the atmosphere for you? And then, on top of that amazing racing, it is just absolutely incredible, isn't it? Like, up there with, football matches and things like that. How much is the atmosphere kind of special for you? And how much does it help the British Grand Prix experience?
Well, for me, the fans make everything. The fans make the event what it is. The passionate Hamilton fans, and of course you've got your passionate Verstappen fans, your passionate Charles, and obviously Max fans and everything, and Lando Norris fans. Of course, a lot of Lando's making a lot more fans now with him doing his live streams and his iRace and what have you, and definitely as well. Like we've been there, we've been to Silverstone a couple of times, and of course we went to probably the top of atmosphere of all races, which is Monza. That race is just absolutely incredible when it comes to atmosphere. I can't express how good it was. But for me, just touching on what Aldas said there, take everything away from it as well as an event. It's so like you walk into Silverstone and you can just feel the buzz, the positivity that this is going to be a good race. We're here. We're all like Formula One. Like I don't know many people that do like Formula One. And when I went to events like Silverstone, Monza, and even Autosport, it's good to be around people and hanging around with people that like the same things as you do, and you kind of bounce off each other in that sense, and you have a good time, you make some good memories, and that's a big thing as well. It's a memory, it's something that will stay with you for the rest of your life. Because let's face it, F1 races are expensive to go to. There are people out there who will never be able to afford to go to a Grand Prix. So, and if you do manage to go to one, and with the how unpredictable races could be, because we have seen some big races get chopped off the calendar. That could be the last time that race could be held. I mean, Lyle and obviously Aldas, we went into Silverstone, that British Grand Prix, thinking at the time that was going to be the last British Grand Prix. If you remember, because there was no there was no certain future, so that was going into it as well. So, and again, just making it like an everlasting memory. So, and of course, it's a big part of, so when you sit back down and when you sit down and look at your life in maybe 30, 40, even 50 years time, you're gonna go, I remember going to the British Grand Prix that day, and it's just a brilliant skeptical of and like I said, it does make up sport. Like I've been to a couple of football matches, and the crowd there are just incredible. I could not imagine it behind closed doors. It would just be weird, absolutely weird. But yeah, and it's not going to only affect like the event itself. I think watching a race without fans on the telly, it wouldn't seem weird, because you don't really look at the crowd like on a football match or in any other sport. You can see the crowd more or less all match or all session or whatever. In Formula One, there are sections of track where there aren't any grandstands, so you don't think about it. You don't think, there's no fans there. That looks weird. You just watch the racing.
And you don't usually hear them as well. You don't usually hear them over the cars.
Yeah.
Exactly. Unless you're at Austria, Max that makes a lunge on Charles Leclerc. But anyway, let's not go down that. Let's not go down that.
Melbourne 2014, when you could hear the crowd over the incredibly quiet cars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was weird. But when it comes to the podium celebrations, that's when we're going to notice a big difference. I don't know about what you guys think, but picture this, right? You've got a Ferrari 1-2, Charles winning, Vettel second, controversial, and let's say Hamilton third. They're on the top set of the podium, but there's no fans. Like I couldn't imagine that. Yeah.
I do see what you mean, for sure, but the thing is, I think for Formula One and for motor racing in general, I think it's a little bit different racing behind closed doors. Like when you watch basketball or football, you see the fans and you hear them so prominently. I don't think in motorsport it's going to be like as impactful, because I've watched a lot of like F2 or GP2, depends, well, it's F2 now, like I've watched a lot of F2 races, and really, I mean, sometimes you don't really hear the fans. Then there's not really that many once the drivers are on the podium. Certainly, it was like that actually in Silverstone, but.
Yeah.
It definitely misses something, doesn't it? Because the fans, especially when I do like when they kind of cut to the fans after there's been a great move and they're all celebrating, and of course the Verstappen army. I mean, they just go crazy, and we've definitely seen that at Silverstone. So yeah, it would definitely be weird. But I think for Formula One, if this does happen, racing behind closed doors later on in the season, I think it would be a lot less noticeable, rather than say football, basketball, or something like that. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That's what I was kind of saying, of that we're not going to notice anything when we're watching the racing itself. We're just going to watch the obviously the Formula One. We're going to be seeing who's going to be first into the first corner, who's going to be battling for position and stuff like that. And then the only time we'll notice is when there's no crowd. But obviously back then, some people probably don't even watch the podium. They'll just be like, oh, race finished, I'm just going to go off and make myself a cup of tea and continue with the rest of my day. So, to be fair, I guarantee there'll be points where we'll go, do you know what? I keep forgetting that there's no fans.
I think it's not just the fans' perspective. So, for example, when we went to Silverstone, John, or when anyone went to Silverstone, and also when we went to Monza, actually, I forget about that. We saw the drivers when they were coming in. It's a massive. I mean, remember that when we were meeting the drivers, we were seeing the drivers. Everyone gets cheers. Everyone apart from Antonio Giovinazzi got cheers. And it was a massive. I mean,
don't do my guy Gio that dirty. Come on.
I mean, John, you must remember that woman that was a Vettel fan. And what she said, I've got that on record. Oh my god, honestly, she was amazing. She was a massive Vettel fan, and like she'd been waiting all weekend, guys, to see Sebastian Vettel. And this car almost ruined that shot. It was amazing. You hear her. I'm not going to say what she said, but it's incredible. If you're out there, I don't know your name, but shout us that. I think she told us that a name there, but we missed it. Anyway, so going back to the drivers, they get the buzz from us now. Again, as you were saying from football, I mean, of course, that would be noticeable. And actually, just chucking it back to what you were saying, Aldas, about the Formula 2 and 3 races. Me and Jordan, again, when we went to Monza, it was Formula 2, I think it was, on the Saturday evening. And obviously, after the rainy qualifying, there was very few people there. And that was one of my favourite races. And of course, there's not many people there normally. But that's just a support race. Formula 1 would definitely see that. But the drivers, when they're coming in, they're always meeting fans. I mean, for example, it's only a small thing, but when Lewis Hamilton, comes out of the pit lane and waves to his fans, of course, most races he does that because he's, hashtag blessed, and wherever we are, he's best fans in the world. He can't do that. They don't have meet and greet. For example, on the Thursday, there's going to be no, I mean, this isn't the actual Formula weekend, of course, for anyone watching on the telly, but there's no, stage, there's no interviews, there's no signatures. And of course, in terms of the F1 show and all the broadcasting, there'll be none of that. It will be, really, 3 days of winter testing. And that's the thing, winter testing is competitive. So obviously you want to, get first place. There's no real reward for it, but you still want to get first place. Really, it will just be more of that. And obviously winter testing is incredibly dull. I mean, I know it's winter testing and that's why they do, but I think a lot of the times when they flick over to interviewing different drivers and different pundits around the circuit and have different guests in the commentary booth, is just to kind of keep up the momentum. You know what I mean? We're chucking a ball in the air for 8 hours and you cannot let the ball hit the ground and your arms are getting tired, but you've still got to keep the ball going. They can't let winter testing get incredibly boring, so they have to kind of keep chucking in new things. And that's what the weekend will be like. Just boring, really. I think the fans make a bigger difference than kind of what we would think. The drivers wouldn't see any fans coming in. And that's the next thing, Aldas. Do you think that the drivers psychologically, so for example, I mean, they're always pumped up by meeting fans. You always see that, every 3 or 4, 5, 6, whatever seconds, Max or Daniel or Seb, and of course, as you said there, the Dutch Grand Prix, which hasn't ran yet, but the Austrian Grand Prix, as we know from the last few years, are Max Mania. He gets bombarded by, meeting people and signatures and selfies and things like that. So do you think it would affect the drivers psychologically not to have the fans there? Because we would turn up and Lewis Hamilton would have nobody to wave to. You could walk through the paddock with nobody stopping you. And for people like Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel, they would be lost. Sebastian Vettel would be like, I've literally walked through this paddock with nobody stopping us. I can't believe it. So do you think it would affect the drivers psychologically to have no fans, kind of pumping them on throughout the weekend, signing autographs, taking selfies, and I know you can't hear them as you've just said there, but nobody's shouting, from the grandstands to cheering them on in that weekend. Do you think it would affect them?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to touch on one thing that you said. When you were talking about Lewis Hamilton then, how he'll have no one to wave to, I was like, I'm trying to feel sorry for Lewis Hamilton, but then I realised that the guy's a 6-time world champion and multi-hundred millionaire, and I was like, I think he'll be all right. But yeah, certainly, from the fans' perspective in terms of, from the driver's perspective, the fans definitely give them something. Fernando Alonso has said it, Lewis Hamilton has said it, Max has said it. It gives you that 10th or 2, and especially that big push, because you want to be that guy, especially when the pressure is on. The best drivers always rise to the occasion. Of course, we've seen like Fernando Alonso win at his home Grand Prix both in 2012 and then in 2013 as well. And then, of course, Lewis Hamilton has said on multiple occasions that the British crowd gives him so much just energy, so many good vibes, and that is another big reason why he loves Silverstone. And then, of course, Max, the funny thing is, Max almost has 3 different home Grand Prix. Of course, now Zandvoort, Austria as well, but also Spa, because, of course, he was born in Belgium. So, yeah, I think the fans are a massive part of the drivers, but at the end of the day, I think certainly for the more experienced drivers, I actually think they'll be okay, because especially when we're talking about people like Lewis Hamilton, Seb, Verstappen, they're ultra focused guys. They're there for the championship, and I don't think, at the end of the day, at the end of their careers, it's not going to say 2020 world champion asterisk, but there was no crowd. For them, it really is just about doing the business and getting that title won. Of course, it's going to be a massive part of the race weekend missing, of them not being able to see the fans, get that extra energy. But I think for the more experienced drivers, once they get in that car and once the visor is down, all they will care about is being in first place and winning. For the younger drivers, I think it might be a little bit of a shock to the system, although at the same time, maybe since they were used to racing with less fans in F2, it might not be. But I think for the younger drivers, the Norrises, the Albons, for Latifi especially, what a weird season that would be. A debut season where he would race without any fans. So I think that might be a bit more of a shock to the system to the likes of those guys. But I think for the more experienced guys, especially if they're fighting for titles up top, yeah, like I said, once the visor goes down, they're fully focused, and I think they're going to be fine with it.
Yeah. Jordan?
Yeah, I think one of the things you can kind of see what gets. I think obviously the fans do make a big difference to the drivers, as what you were saying there. And I think eventually, once you've signed a couple of autographs and took a couple of photos, it probably gets a bit obviously you don't want to show it because you're a role model, you're in everyone's eye view. But eventually, you're gonna get a bit like, oh, really? Okay, another one. Okay, really? I'm tired. I want to go back in the home and all that. So I think that from that sense, they'll be certainly more relaxed. Of course, they'll have no questions. They'll have nothing really to do. They'll just turn up to the track, do what they have to do, and probably just go home. I would think.
I was going to say, just to really quickly butt in, that's probably Kimi Räikkönen. This is probably like the season for Kimi Räikkönen, because that is multiple times, literally. He doesn't care about the media. He has sometimes said he doesn't even really want to sign stuff for the fans. He just goes, he wants a weekend where he turns up, goes straight from his taxi into his Alfa Romeo, does the laps, does the race, does the qualifying, and then goes home afterwards. That's it, nothing else. So for Kimi Räikkönen, this must be the dream situation. He must be buzzing inside.
He'll be waiting up, go, okay, what have we got to do? Okay, Kimi, we've just got 2 practice sessions, and I don't know, trip to the pool, perhaps? Oh. Then all of a sudden you have a big smile on his face, and then when everything goes back to normal, that's when he will officially quit. That's what he's waiting for. Just no fans, nothing, just do my race and go back. I've lived it. I'm finished now. That's me done as well. But it could also play in the hands of the younger drivers. For example, if they are going to have races behind closed doors, I don't know if they're going to have F2 and F3 as well. I don't know if you guys can confirm or whatever with that, but I think it really depends on the situation where Formula One would actually be able to host races, because it would be a massive. At the same time, are we talking about once the virus is completely over or something like that? Because I don't know if Formula One would want to risk having F2 and F3 there as well. And also I think Porsche Super Cup as well, because they're like this another supporting race for Formula One. So it really depends what Formula One would want to be there. Of course they want their main sport, which is Formula One, but it really depends what else they can have there and whether it would be worth to take the risk of also having F2 there. But I feel like, I don't know if it would be worth it to have Formula One there without without Formula 2 and Formula 3. But I suppose it depends what's most important for them and if they can make the most amount of money from it. Yeah, exactly. And speaking as well of money, I was thinking about this as well. So if they have no fans at the track, do you think that'll financially hit certain circuits who aren't like government funded, like Silverstone, for example?
Maybe, but at the same time, I mean, the TV money is, I think, as much as ticket sales are really important, and of course that is at the end of the day what keeps a Grand Prix there. I think the TV money and the fact that there's even more people watching or maybe going to watch the race on the TV with no fans, I think they'll still be okay. I mean, at the same, for Formula One, it's better, obviously, as a business model, it's better to have a race with no fans and get as much TV money as they can than have no race at all, if that kind of makes sense.
Actually, I just want to say something there that I learned a few years ago. Actually, when I was working at Silverstone, of course, most of the tracks in the world are actually government funded, but Silverstone isn't. So what I was just thinking of there is that, you know, races like, for example, the Italian Grand Prix. Okay, so I use it as an example. Of course, that's in September after the summer break. Most likely that'll be okay. But of course, at one point that was, you know, Italy obviously were hit massively in this pandemic. And the Italian Grand Prix was on talks about what they were going to do, you know, were they going to race behind closed doors, were they going to cancel the race. My view of it, Italy, is that they're probably the race that's, you know, even if the race doesn't go ahead, when I say the race, I just mean like kind of the slot of where the Italian Grand Prix would be. Whatever happens to that circuit, I think they would be the ones that would probably be the most financially sound out of the whole calendar, because, you know, it is government funded by Italy. Of course, we do know how much Italy and the Italian government, you know, supports Ferrari. They also have AlphaTauri there. I don't know how much they would bring, but, you know, especially Ferrari, they would be the ones that would be okay. But Silverstone, on that hand, I mean, nothing's been said yet. Of course, the race at this time is still going ahead. Nothing's been said at this time, but the revenue that would be lost from there, not just for Formula One's pocket, so like Chase Carey, but also just for the British Grand Prix, you know, the Silverstone circuit. My guess is Silverstone would be hit a lot by this lost revenue, something that they would need, because for the past few years we've had talks about Silverstone possibly being off the calendar. As Jordan said there at the start, you know, 2019 possibly being the last Silverstone, last British Grand Prix. And I don't think this is going to help. I think that this might be really, really bad, and that in a few years' time, you know, if Silverstone doesn't go ahead, for example, we might be looking in a few years' time at Silverstone being in a really bad situation, even worse than they were, you know, back in 2018, 2019. So that, you know, that's where I think it is. But of course, I agree with you, Jordan. You know, all the races are going to get hit financially, because, you know, the revenue that they've lost is absolutely massive. But obviously, as you say, Aldas said, you know, it definitely is the TV revenue that they're getting, you know, from showing the race. But that being said, though, it is just going to be solid 3 days. You know, like, how many hours is it? So obviously you've got 90 minutes for FP1, 90 minutes for FP2, and now for FP3, you know, 45 minutes for quali, and then let's say a 2-hour race. So all of that is just going to be that on telly. There's going to be no build-up. Having a paddock live would be pretty pointless. Having the grid walk, I mean, so for example, the grid walk, I mean, if there's just engineers and there's just drivers, but there's no celebrities, which of course Martin Brundle, again, you know, I enjoy watching them. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I enjoy watching them, you know, the talk to the celebrities, you know, what are they doing? Again, there's some ex-Formula 1 drivers on the paddock. What are they doing? You know, normally Ross Brawn's there, Chase Carey, the high-up guys of that country. So again, pit lane, whatever it's called, might not be on.
Yeah.
The race will be on, of course. The podium is covered at the end of the race, but then there'll be no paddock live, because paddock live will be pointless. It'll be all them packing up, and of course Ted's notebook, which we watch, which is probably the only thing we can say is, you know, probably going to happen, because of course Ted's notebook is him walking around reviewing the race.
There might still be like TV personnel there, because obviously if they aren't going to have any fans, and therefore the coronavirus will still be around.
Yeah.
But of course, it won't be as serious as what it is now. Where we'll go, right, okay, we need to get a move on, but it's still a bit. We don't want to kind of make it contagious and spread it even further. So obviously, maybe they'll take like a set amount of mechanics, perhaps, or maybe I don't know, or maybe say, all right, okay, like Simon Lazenby, the host, he's going to go to every race. Brundle can go to this race, and this race, just them two. And then, I don't know, another person with this, and this. Crofty, I'd imagine, will go to every race, just him on his own, maybe do his own commentary, or even have Martin Brundle maybe stand him on the other side of the room, I don't know.
Well, as you say that,
I mean,
John,
really, go for it.
So I was going to say that, I think that's a massive thing. And obviously, in terms of this video, the biggest thing, the biggest topic from this is, as Jordan mentioned there, so, you know, the why the race will be done behind closed doors is to protect the public from the coronavirus. But So for Silverstone, for example, there's 351,000 people throughout the whole weekend. For example, the closest one to us at the moment is France, Paul Ricard circuit. They had 135,000 people, which isn't that much. And then Austria had a whacking 203,000 for the track. I'm pretty blown away from that. So that amount of people, they're saving from going to the event, obviously possibly passing on the virus, being at risk. But there is still, this is very similar to Melbourne as well, as Jordan said, there's still the mechanics, the logistical crew, the drivers, all the people in the paddock are still there. So that might only equate to 100 people, Jordan, in Aldas. That might only equate to 100 people. But why are those 100 people being put at risk? Does that, in your opinion, guys, does that equate? They're stopping many people going to the race for this, to save us obviously from the pandemic. But why are they saying, right, I tell you what, we're going to save. No fans are allowed, but these guys are. These people who it doesn't matter how skilled or whatever they're in, they're as susceptible to getting the virus as us. Does that why are they going to the race? That's the thing. There's 100 people, let's say, give or take 100 people at the race. Does it seem fair for those guys to go to the race, travel abroad, and mingle in the paddock for our entertainment? Aldas, what do you think of that? Do you think that's fair?
What I will say about that is that as much as we talk about racing behind closed doors, I still think that, first of all, I don't think it's actually I don't think it's possible, because even if the number one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is that travel is not even allowed between countries at the moment.
Yeah, true.
So they wouldn't actually even be able to go into the country. So this is why, although we talk about racing behind closed doors, and although it would be quite it's probably one of the best solutions to and maybe one of the safest, it still isn't possible because travel between countries is not allowed. And even if it was, why would the drivers? We also need to talk about the drivers. Why would they even want to go and race if they could catch it or maybe spread it from from one of their teams? And also, the one thing I will say, kind of really just quickly going back about Silverstone, is I think Silverstone will be fine because it does have like a new 5-year deal. That's what happened in 2019. So I don't think for the tracks it's as much of a problem, but certainly for the team personnel, I don't think they'd even want to go. I don't think they'd even want to risk bringing anything like back to their families or anything like that. So as much as it would be a good idea to race behind closed doors, and I think it would be an interesting one, I suppose, I don't think any of even the personnel would even want to go there. So that's both the drivers, the teams, and maybe even the broadcasters as well. I mean, at the same time, as much as you can watch it on Sky, do the Sky people actually even need to be there except for maybe to commentate? Because I suppose at the same time, maybe Crofty can do it from home or something like that, if they can sort something out. So yeah, there's a lot more to sort out than just being able to go there.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, when this came around, this discussion, it was more about getting Formula One back rolling again. But that's the main thing. I mean, of course, as Aldas has just said there, the travel is almost impossible. But when it is, all those people are risking, and Jordan, that's the main thing. All these drivers, all these team personnel are risking their risking their lives, really. I mean, I don't want to get too black, dark, but they're risking their lives really in the pursuit of just our entertainment, and it's not really right. And just quickly before we go on to you, again, going back to Australia, guys. Thursday, McLaren team personnel test positive for COVID-19, and McLaren pull out. Which, when you think about it now, is, I mean, when this came around, this nobody knew very much about what was going on at this point. We were all guns blazing for Melbourne, but it was an incredibly smart decision by McLaren. Something that's been applauded, and really, it was handled really, really well. But that's what we'd be doing. We would just be plunging right back into those kind of situations again. So Jordan, at the end of the day, why would the mechanics and the drivers, who, by the way, I know that they're all skilled, but they're like us at the end of the day. We're all human beings. Why would they risk their lives, risk everything in this situation just for, really, just at the end of the day, for our sole entertainment?
Exactly. I mean, you put yourself back in that same scenario as what happened in Australia when the Haas mechanics and, of course, the McLaren mechanics, Haas tested, all of them tested negative, and I think did one or two, or a couple of them did test positive, and then they flew back about a month later. So let's say, for example, like they decide to go ahead with this. There'll be no fans. The British Grand Prix race goes ahead. Next race in Hungary, someone else comes down with coronavirus. One of the mechanics. What do you do then? Do you pull out? You're gonna have to, because McLaren did. So if one team pulls out, then the rest should pull out. So therefore, you've just done one race, and then the season's back to square one again. And again, it's just like well, what was the point in that? And then again, what would you do?
Yeah, I think that's why F1 just can't even risk like racing behind closed doors, because if that actually happened, could you imagine if someone tested, if they said, we're going to do it, it's a risk, but we're not 100% sure if it's completely gone, but we're going to start racing behind closed doors, and then someone did catch it, that would the sort of backlash that would come from the fans for Formula One. I don't think they could take that sort of risk, especially because it's such a it's such a difficult situation. It's a very touchy situation as well. It's touch and go. So that's why I don't think for Formula One it would even be worth like taking the risk. Although I must say, there is a part of me that actually, I'd love to see cars behind closed doors. It's just something that there is a part of me that does want to see. I don't know why, but yeah, certainly for Formula One, I'm not sure if it's worth it for them. And that's why I think they would be very cautious to do it.
Yeah.
Well, just rewatch like South Korean Grand Prix or the Indian Grand Prix.
Oh,
It's pretty much that, basically. Or watch some game. Who knows? Anyway, moving so far.
Here we go. Let's not get too. Hey, mate. Let's not get too controversial just too quickly. I will say there was
I can't not do a video without like no fans and have a sly dig at my rivals. I can't. I just can't do it.
There was a Barcelona game a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, because there was rioting, I think, in Barcelona, some kind of government things, and they actually did play a few games like behind closed doors, and it was really quite strange. But at the end of the day, I think it's for football, it's a little bit different. Like it was really noticeable. Like to be fair, Camp Nou, like what's their capacity? Like 60, 70,000. So obviously for them, it's really noticeable. So yeah, it has happened before, and I think it is possible for Formula One. But the big question is the risk really worth taking for Liberty Media?
I mean, Formula One itself was under massive criticism for actually allowing fans to go to Albert Park in the first place. Like a lot of big, like I think the Premier League I think they were on hold. Big sporting events were on hold. The Olympics, I don't think anything was said about the Olympics at this time. But you know what I mean? There was some big and even small sporting events, small gatherings, festivals, gigs, or whatever. Everything was put on hold. But Formula One.
Yeah, but the thing about Australia is you've got to remember that Formula One Grand Prix is planned months in advance. It's not. So that's.
Yeah.
There were so many people that were actually angry, obviously, because they went all the way to Australia. They probably understood in the end, but there were a lot of fans, and a lot of people don't talk about this. There were a lot of people who were actually angry that the race was cancelled in the end because they thought, we're all here.
I mean,
and
that could have been.
It's very frustrating.
That could have been your whole holiday. If you're from. Anywhere in the world, even in another part of Australia, it didn't really matter if you have to, come from another country. Even if you're from Australia, it's still a holiday. Hotels and everything else, and you'd got your money back. Well, we think so. You'd got your money back through the tickets, but it's still your holiday. And just one last thing, just touching on what you said, Aldas, about Grand Prix. It's got to be planned months in advance. So at the moment, we're in, coming towards the end of April. The French Grand Prix, as I say, on the calendar, but let's put a pin in that for a minute. That's at the end of June. Let's say Austria and Silverstone, July races. If we were going to go ahead, would we need to say how much time in advance would we have to say, right, Austria is the first race, Silverstone's the last race? Could they wait until like a week beforehand, end of June, and then say, right, Austria's on? Or like what you've just said there, would we have to make a decision by, Austria, for example, would the decision have to be at the start of June, middle of June? What if, like, the Olympics, the Euro 20, the European Football Cup has already been postponed. So what would they do for Austria? Would they have to reach a decision soon? What's kind of the latest they would have to make a decision for, obviously, all the fans to get there, the logistics and things like that? What would I can't imagine that they would turn up Thursday night in Spielberg and say, right, everything's fine. Tell the groundskeeper we'll open the gates and the race will go ahead as normal. What would happen in that? What would happen in that instance? How long kind of would we have to say Austria is on the? If Austria is going to go ahead, when would we have to say it's on? Like the last time we would say that.
I think it all depends what transportation they have booked and when. Is it still, because that's the thing. It's not just about when a race is going to be on or off. They have to get all the cars and get all the equipment out there from their factories, and that's not going to be easy. And again, with that, you have to talk about the travel ban because they're not even able. Most countries are completely shut down. So it really depends what transportation they have booked and when is it cancelled, is it postponed, is it kind of on hold. So they probably have every single like transportation thing already like still all set up, but completely postponed. So maybe they can do it, decide 2 weeks before, like yes it's on, yes it's off. But I think I think it's a long term thing. It's got I think for me a month before easily, like, and that's at the earliest. It's got to be a month, and then they can say, we are going to go for that race. Everything is set up. Everything is going to be done as normal, just with no fans. Everything is going to get transported. The driver's going to get flown out, but that's going to have to be decided, like a month before. Because other than that, I think it would just be maybe not enough time, really.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a bit of a random, complete, kind of relatable, but Pirelli as well making the tyres. I mean, I don't know how long it takes to make a Grand Prix weekend's amount of tyres, but I'm pretty sure a week is a bit short.
I think they already have those though, or certainly a lot of them already prepared for the races.
Oh, do they? All right, I'm not. Again, I was just a random suggestion because I don't know if what the process Pirelli go through, because I do know that they did throughout bin really essentially all the tyres that they made for the Australian Grand Prix, which
if you remember Mike F1 Fanatics, you remember his quiz at Christmas. He gave us a question, didn't he, on Pirelli tyres? Do you remember the answer?
Did he?
I think I do remember it.
I can't remember the question, let alone the answer.
I think to be fair, I think it was like 50,000 tyres or 80,000.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking 70.
But you've got to remember though that they're actually recycled. The Pirelli tyre, what they do is they actually get all the tyres from the teams and they actually recycle the rubber. So I think for Pirelli, it's a different thing. But again, can you even get out of Italy at the moment? I don't think you can even get out. So it's a really interesting kind of topic to look into.
All those things really. It's absolutely crazy. But obviously here we are right now, guys. We are, whatever happens, it's not our opinions. It's really not down the FIA. It's not down the FOM. Nobody knows what's going on. We have to move with the tides. And of course, whatever the decision is the safest decision. We know that for sure. So Aldas, final thing from you. I mean, as I've said there, nothing is done deal. What we want is, it's about safety at the end of the day. But when do you think we could possibly get back to racing? And of course, the big thing, what we've been talking about in this episode, closed doors racing. As of the time of we're recording this, French Grand Prix is still on. French government are deciding what to happen. As also is Silverstone at the end of this month. They will make a decision about what's going to happen. So what do you think is going to happen for the rest of the season? Just, your opinion, what do you think is happening? And do you think we will... Is that an option to race behind closed doors?
Well, it all really depends. First of all, it depends on two things. One, when the coronavirus actually stops spreading and stops causing new cases, and it's going to have to be like at least a 2-week period between no brand new cases, and then you can kind of call the pandemic maybe over. But the next big thing is after that, when is everything 100% safe, and when is everything going to go 100% back to normal? Because it might just be that although no more new cases come up, there could still be a ban on traveling and still seeing people to kind of get a bit of a period of still separation. So at the moment, Silverstone is obviously 4 months away. It's April, May, June, July. So I still think that the British Grand Prix could potentially be on, but at the moment, I actually think we're looking more to Belgium, to August in another 5 months' time, to be honest, because I think the British Grand Prix and the Hungarian and Austrian and the French, they're all on at the moment because they haven't been postponed. But I think with the amount of time that you need to wait, even after someone says that it is safe to go out, I think the likeliest is the Belgian Grand Prix. But then we run into a different problem, which is Formula One still going to be a championship 20? Is 2020 still going to be a championship season if we have less than 8 races, which of course it won't be a championship season. So it's very touch and go with that as well. So yeah, I mean, obviously we all want to see Formula One back as quick as possible. I'd never thought I'd say this in my life, but I really want there to be a French Grand Prix at. So yeah,
I don't think you're the only one. I don't think you're the only one.
So what do you think, Jordan? I mean, just
don't get wrong. I have nothing against Paul Ricard, but it hasn't exactly been the best racetrack in the world. But at the moment, I'd take any track.
I mean, what do you think?
I mean, I said to one of Sean's streams, I said to him, mate, I would take a Paul Ricard 2019 race right now, and he's like, no, I'm not that desperate. I am that desperate, man.
I am.
But I mean, again, a quote from him. He said that he didn't think. I think this is about when Spain and Monaco got cancelled. He said that he couldn't see any races beyond the summer break, which back then was August time is normal, but of course they've moved it back to now, for now anyway. And at the time I was like, no, we'll be fine by Silverstone. We'll be fine by Silverstone. But yeah, I can't say anything until at least Belgium. And then, I mean, Ross Brawn came up with a really ridiculous statement and said, oh, we plan to have 19 races, even if we start in July. And it's like,
the fact is, just quickly on that, is that...
That's too much.
Just what you said there, about 19 races. I don't know why we have to cram all these races into 2020, because what I'm thinking of is that, like...
We simply can't.
So, as you guys have just said, which obviously is a great thinking, Belgium, Italy, a couple of the political races, Mountain Brundle says, and then Abu Dhabi, curtain falls, and then we get back to normality. Australia 2021, then we have a full season in 2021. Because if we cram in all these races throughout December and January and do super seasons, it's going to push everything back. It's absolutely crazy. It really, really is. But anyway, guys, that is where we're going to end this episode, because it's been going on for such a long time. We feel like this debate is a very big one. Of course, leave it in the description box below, guys. What do you think? Of course, safety is paramount. We know that's the decision. It's not going to be taken lightly. But just in your opinions, when do you think we will get back to racing? And do you think that racing behind closed doors, and also sporting events, if any, do you think that they should be done behind closed doors? What do you think? Aldas, thank you very much for being on our episode. It's an absolute pleasure as always. I think this is the first time of 2020, and this first time in this situation, but I guess we can say about everyone. Thank you for being on. Any last thoughts from you?
No, just thank you for having me on. It's been a massive surprise, the fact that I haven't been on your channel in such a long time, and we need to do more collaborations for sure. I mean, we've got plenty of time, but yeah.
Yeah, we do,
guys, it was it was really great to be on, and I really enjoyed it. It didn't get too controversial, but you never know. Maybe there's always next time.
There is always next time. We'll make sure to make it. I mean, obviously, we've just learned that, or I've just learned that you are an Everton fan, so if they ever do a Merseyside derby, or the next time they do, we'll make sure that you're on for that one.
A Merseyside derby special.
Some of my family is Liverpool, so I'm sure I can, make some controversial stuff towards you. And of course, Jordan Pickford as well. We're not going to get started on him. But before we do that, let's just move on. Anyway, guys, as I say, that is our episode. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure it's to stay on track with everything that we've got coming out. F1 or no F1, doesn't matter really to us. It does, of course, Formula 1. We love it. But we've still got great content coming up. Thank you very much for watching this episode, guys. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye, guys.
See you later, guys.